Thank you, Madam Chair, for holding this committee, and thank the witnesses, very impressive, for attending today and sharing your knowledge with us. In keeping with today's subject, NASA's Aeronautics mission, enabling the transformation of aviation, it was interesting to hear Dr. Lewis say he thinks NASA's mission is essentially doing those things that private industry cannot do, and which I pretty much think is the role of government. You do for the people what the people cannot do individually. You do collectively for them. And Dr. Shin, I heard your reference to working with FAA and having some good experiences, but it brings to mind some very bad experiences that I've seen with FAA, a terrible waste of resources. You may recall, you're all old enough to recall, when the United States basically controlled 100% of the world's commercial launch market for satellites, commercial satellites. And through over-regulation of federal bureaucrats, we parlayed that into about 15%, almost completely choked the golden goose, and created the competition that we have today for the commercial launches in other countries. We have, you mentioned space support vehicles earlier. We have a contractor in my district, Space Support Vehicle. They've done years and years worth of parabolic missions for NASA. It's so much easier to put an experiment in the back seat of an F-104 with a pilot that's flown a zillion hours and test the gravitational effect of the payload than it is to launch a dispensable rocket or whatever. And you know, that's one little company. They decided, you know, we'd like to take people up too for this. There's an interest in doing that. So they applied to a license to FAA. And the FAA said, well, you know, you're not a jet that go from Washington, D.C. to Orlando 50 times a day. And you're not Virgin Galactic that we licensed before they ever put the first vehicle in the air. So we're not going to give you a license. I mean, they could get this license in any other country in the world, be delighted to have that business and that. But the unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats at the FAA couldn't get off center. So during the last session, then Majority Leader McCarthy, and with the support of a lot of co-sponsors, passed legislation and said you will create a licensing category for these space support vehicles. Whereupon they have kind of refused to do that. And I'm wondering if you have other areas where you have observed this same kind of counterproductive behavior. I'd like to hear about it. Anyone?
I'm sorry that you have had a lot of those examples, but from where I sit, I think in the aviation side, FAA leadership and management and technical people have really stepped up in trying to be proactive and opening up these a lot of exciting markets that we
Okay,
see.
so you haven't experienced the downside. Anybody else experienced the downside, or am I supposed to take this personal? I'll take it personal and work on their budget accordingly. Dr. Shin and Dr. Lewis, other agencies fund hypersonics at a much higher levels than we do. However, NASA has unique facilities and expertise in that field. You know, is there an opportunity for NASA to conduct work on a reimbursable basis for other agencies?
I think that is entirely possible. And as Dr. Lewis mentioned in his testimony, we have been cultivating really robust and very symbiotic, mutually beneficial relationship with DoD in particular. But I think we can certainly increase the partnerships with other government agencies. And because we have that core capability, technical capability, both in workforce and the facility as well.
Okay. Dr. Lewis?
So as I mentioned, NASA's budget in hypersonics is a tiny fraction, frankly, of what the DoD is spending. But what they bring to the table is incredibly impressive. They've got depth of knowledge. They've got expertise. They understand aspects of the fundamentals that no other part of the government, of which I'm aware, has. And I can cite success story after success story where NASA worked with the DoD in the hypersonic realm. One I'll give you right off the top of my head was when the Air Force was doing the X-51 program. So we tested the engine for X-51 in the NASA facility. Then we had NASA engineers working on the X-51 program. We had NASA engineers in the control room the day of the first flight of X-51. I'm here to tell you, if we didn't have that support, I don't think the program would have been as successful. It's absolutely critical.
Yeah, that's awesome. Madam Chair, I yield back. Thank you.